What's up, everybody? I'm Joe Longo. This is 30 Days of Inspiration. This is my friend Noah Julian.
Hello.
I'm back in my living room. We were not in the Wissahickon today. Not yet, at least.
I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah, but not today. So Noah and I actually did some photographs a couple nights ago here, but it was late. We're old men. So we decided to have our conversation when the sun was out to chat about things.
I've always been an old man, just to make that clear.
Same. I mean, I am.
Early to bed, or early to rise.
Yeah. It's so great getting up early, though. What time do you wake up?
Well, my preferable is like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That would be my ideal, but I have to admit the past year I feel like I've fallen off my ideal schedule. Mm-hmm. I go through phases in life of where I like map out a schedule, which you sort of I think have to do if you're your own boss, mm-hmm. and then allowing it to become organic. And I think for the past year I've been in more of an organic phase, and I'm ready to get back into that like 10 to 6.
Ah, I gotcha. I've been starting at like probably 10 to 5. I tried to go to bed at 9:30.
Doesn't make me happy.
Last night I just couldn't do it. I just laid there. But I love the morning. And now with this working out stuff, I'm trying to go 3 times a week in the morning, mm-hmm. and then another 2 times just at like a normal time. Do you
go fasted or do you eat before you train?
This morning fasted. Yeah,
nice.
I've always been a little worrisome of eating and then going and mm-hmm. moving my body in any kind of way.
It definitely limits what you're going to be able to do. I prefer to go fasted, which is one reason why I like that wake up and move is mm-hmm. such a wonderful schedule to get on.
And the day has been great so far. Like
yeah.
I thought I'd be like, oh shit, I'm gonna be tired, but I feel really awake and good, yeah. and my body doesn't hurt tomorrow. I'm sure it will hurt in new places. It's been a long time, but it's been fun. Like moving my body in this new way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an interesting alchemy I found, that just moving in new ways, what it does for everything. Mm-hmm.
Interesting thing. So Friday was my first day, mm-hmm. and it was like a 45-minute lunchtime thing, and it was great, but it was hard for me. And then I didn't go on Saturday; they were closed Sunday, and then I went today. And as soon as we started doing our little warm-ups, my legs, not that they were like sore, but felt like they were just like, yeah, we don't want to do any of this
just
right
heavy?
now. Yeah, real heavy. But then once I started going, they came to life. But the first couple things, it was like, oh, good Lord, this is going to be brutal.
Yeah.
But it got much better.
It's funny with a lot of, I think, physical practices, there is like just that initial hump to sort of get over. Mm-hmm. I could definitely feel that with like just pranayama, just working just breathing practices without movement in between, mm-hmm. and that ability to get past like the first moment of panic of this is not going to work, this is not going to go well. And you pass it, like, wait a minute, okay.
All right, why don't you make it through? So what kind of pranayama? Like your Instagram story kind of stuff?
Well, I do a similar pranayama every morning, which I was putting on Instagram every day. That was like the one thing that I committed to keeping, and now lately I've kind of wanted the privacy back during my pranayama. Uh-huh. But yeah, I do, every morning I do a series that's just like an abbreviated of, part of it I would say is stuff that I'm just identically copying from the Kundalini tradition. Some of it is some work that I did with like Wim Hof's style of breathing, which he's the Iceman, if anybody watched the Vice documentary, and Joe did some beautiful photos of me in the snow, and I got really into the Wim Hof practice.
I was really scared. But check out Wim, he's great. Yeah. And I'll put the photo of Noah in the snow right here.
But I usually use that as kind of a close to my longer pranayama practice. I found that is a nice one to end on. My teacher, Naveen Makan from Katona Yoga, she uses these beautiful metaphors when she moves through a practice. And so when she offers her pranayama, she will kind of take you through this journey, and one of the metaphors she'll use is like you're climbing this mountain, and she'll constantly take you up in altitude where the air gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and you have to be able to control yourself as the oxygen becomes harder to come by. Mm-hmm. And that is sort of like, that Wim Hof breath is sort of like a spaceship right at the end. It's like, you sort of done all this prep, you're at the bottom of the mountain, it's like, all right, here we go.
Right.
So I do Kapalabhati, which is breath of fire, and then some Bastrika, some circular cat-cow with Bastrika, and then I'll go into the Wim Hof breath. Lately, this is what I sort of do, and I've been using one of the Tibetan pranayamas that my friend Emil uses all the time. So that's kind of my pranayama practice, but it shifts seasonally a little bit. Like I try to do something that feels more relevant to summer, and then something that feels more relevant to fall or winter.
So more cooling breath in the summer?
Yeah.
Heating breath in the fall?
Yeah, at least I would say the focus for me right now feels like it's a kind of balancing. I find with the heat, there seems to be this erraticness to my own energy, of where it'll be like really high because it's sunny, but then that humidity and everything bakes me in. So I find actually maybe not just cooling, but like focusing on like Nadi Shodhana and things like that, things that are very, which is cooling, but I guess the way that I'm focusing on it is balance.
Stella's here as well, and she heard probably a bird.
She's very excited.
She's protecting us. When you're doing the Wim Hof technique, are you also holding your breath?
Yeah, so the Wim Hof breath that he mostly uses during his online course, which is what I took, is this yang inhale. So you pull in as much breath on the inhale and a yin exhale, where you barely let air out. You're just letting whatever leave sort of on its own. And you do these yang exhales, and after you've done a certain number that you've set, his number is 30 that he uses most often. 30th one, you'll hold the exhale for as long as you can. So I've gone through periods where that was the breath I was focusing on, and at that time I was getting up to like 4.5 minutes, which is very profound. It's it's a transcendental experience. That's the way I would describe it.
Yeah. I never really thought about it in Kundalini when I'm doing breath of fire and we do that big inhale and we hold our breath. Did I really enjoy that space? And really never noticed how long until the Wim Hof breath came into my life. Like, oh, they're very similar. And then playing around with actually seeing how long I can hold my breath for without practice. Really.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the one time it was like 1.5 minutes. I'm like, that is long. And
Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of, I don't want to say shows up, but more I feel like I disappear. Which is interesting. A fun place of just kind of like not being there.
Naveen talks about how pranayama is a tool that allows you to be able to control time. And that's the way I think I experience what you're referring to, the not being there. Is there, just like training, there is this initial moment of panic about 30 seconds in of like, what if I don't take a breath again? And you can at any point. But there's kind of that initial moment of panic, and then you hopefully have this realization that it's like, okay, I'm safe, and then when I want to leave this, I just take a breath. And once you kind of cross that threshold, I feel the experience that I think you're describing is just this timelessness, where it's everything is on pause,
right,
or in slow motion, which is amazing for like quieting the noise, the anxiety of. It's an amazing way to start my day. It's the very first thing, because I can have this tendency to wake up and get overwhelmed. Like, oh my God, there's so much to do. You'll never do it. You never get any of it done. And there's this moment of like, you will be with what you're capable of being with today. That's an amazing tone to just set things off.
Right. It's interesting that the mind does that.
Yeah.
And I find that no matter how much I practice, like there are times I wake up in the morning just like that, like with this. Before, like I don't even have my feet on the floor, and somehow my mind is already fucking with me.
Yeah.
Which is, it blows my mind.
Have you read Stephen Pressfield's War of Art? It's a beautiful book where Stephen, who's a writer who wrote a lot of fiction, he uses, he sort of like personifies this idea of resistance as like as a satyr or a muse or a demon or whatever way you want to look at it, and sort of talks about resistance entering our lives and how it can be a motivator, but how sort of we misinterpret this influence, this muse, and it can then control us. And that is that feeling of like you could interpret it as the muse of motivation of like, now I'll do something, create, or it becoming the demon that sort of holds you.
I would rather have that creative thought, not the demon thought.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Much more on the creative tip than waking up in a panic.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the same. I like to think the same language is being spoken, and it's sort of what frequency are we turning into with our listening, because the same words can be spoken of like, there's so much to do today, or there's so much to do today.
Right.
And it's just which aspect of your psyche are you interpreting that energetic with. There is this massive I've always had a bit of self-consciousness that I've dealt with, and I've noticed the societal there's an insecurity that grows with us learning how much there is to know and how limited we individually are. There does feel like there's this societal insecurity that's growing more and more, that we see exemplified in our leaders and other people in positions of power.
Yeah, it's definitely making for an interesting time to be alive and watch it all. And then circling back around, see, it's just all yoga, all of it.
Oh, totally.
No matter what you look at. Walking out my door, I'm practicing yoga. So I can deal with everything that's going on in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
And, it could be as simple as checking back in with my breath when I see a silly billboard or something that just makes my head want to explode.
Yeah.
One of them, I don't know why I'm on this, ranty.
Why not? Yeah.
Ranty wave. But the billboards that are like, you're a sinner and you best repent now.
I love those.
They blow my mind. They blow my mind that people, billboards blow my mind. If people think that anyone is looking at billboards and actually buying things, they're not. So if you're investing in billboards, stop it. Stop now. But yeah, it kills me. It's like, if you're going to hell, you should call this number and we'll save you.
Yes.
Oh, man. Stop it.
I've been listening to a few of the interviews that Megan Phelps did, the woman who left the Westboro Baptist Church.
Okay.
And it's, are you familiar with them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, for anybody who's not, they're a group that goes out and says many hateful things about a variety of people, but in particular, people that are gay or having abortions, I suppose. I'd say they're their two biggest issues. Well, I've been listening to a lot of interviews with the woman who left, and it's amazing. One of the things that she talked about was being an inquisitive person in a group that is telling you that it's wrong to be inquisitive. And that seems to be such a overarching problem with society or cults, is telling someone that you shouldn't ask questions, and to bring it back around to yoga, that's what ultimately that is asking questions. It's a science. It is. Yeah. That's what science is. It's asking questions and being able to come up with maps and tools to come up with intelligent answers and anything that
intelligent answers. But science is all hokey now.
Well, statistics is ridiculous. So then that's the problem with a lot of science, is misusing statistics and looking for the answer that you want before you actually get a broad enough spectrum of data.
But we are building a space force, so that's neat, right? Spaceships.
Well, we have a supervillain who's doing that. I mean, isn't that what Elon Musk is?
We do have a supervillain.
Yeah. He shot a car into space. He's building tunnels underneath the city. We're living in a comic book right now.
We are.
I dreamed of this when I grew up, and I have no idea that I would actually get it.
Yeah.
I'm terrified by the concept.
Totally. Still come over here. So there was a young man, really young, like 13-year-old physicist. I'll find it and link it. And he gives this whole little talk about how he's convinced that when the Large Hadron Collider, did you hear this?
No.
That when we turned it on,
oh, maybe I have.
it actually pushed us into an alternate, that our dimension, our reality, completely imploded upon itself. And we were absorbed into the next dimension over, or the next reality.
Oh, this is one of the things that people use now for these weird little like historical idiosyncrasies that we have.
Oh, yeah, we talked about
like
this before.
The Bernstein Bears, the Bernstein Bears,
right.
And then the date of the Challenger explosion. Is this related to that?
Yeah, okay. Same kind of thing. That there's all these little things that got mixed up. But I remember seeing that and then watching Joe Rogan's latest Netflix comedy thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he starts talking about us, living in this fucked up world where Donald Trump's the president, Bruce Jenner's a woman.
Yes.
And it's like, what is happening? No, I mean, good job, Bruce, Caitlin. But the whole idea that the switch got flipped and we have this reality star being our president and all this just wacky stuff.
Yeah.
And people are just like, that's cool. Let's build a wall. Let's build that wall because it's totally going to keep people out. And fuck it, while we're at it, now let's build the Space Force.
Yeah.
That's totally cool. What?
Well, I'm reading Guns, Germs, and Steel right now by Jared Diamond.
That sounds interesting.
It's really good. I'm fascinated at like anthropological books of like how did we choose the civilization that we chose or the routes that we've taken as society. And it's a look at like how Western civilization became what it is and became the model of the current paradigm of civilization. And how a lot of it was because that civilization had access to steel, to a certain the agriculture, the way they developed agriculture and keeping animals totally changed the need to move around, so they became more stationary. And in that, you started to have a hierarchy of power, because there was a certain amount of boredom, and then you would have the priest class, you would have the king class or whatever, in order to govern people. But when you're moving around, it becomes more egalitarian. So I think we're just moving into more of that stage of boredom, as we're figuring out how to be able to get other things to do things for us, which is what agriculture was with the enslavement of animals or the enslavement of plants in a certain area. We're becoming more and more bored, and we're just becoming crazier and crazier as a society. But this is not based on anything other than look outside your window.
Right. I mean, it is, and I often come back to this. It is an amazing time to be alive, but it's a little crazy as well. A lot crazy.
It's amazing how much we ignore, how much we oversee because we think we're seeing everything now. And I think that's interesting. I was just on vacation, and it was beautiful. And it was also looking directly at a nuclear power plant while I was across a beach. And it's just like one of those things that it's like, wow, the people that live here just get used to this. They just look out at their beautiful, green, lush park next to the beach, and that overlooks a power plant. And there's this great line by one of my favorite, more modern day philosophers, Robert Anton Wilson, where he says that the divine consciousness was way more intelligent than humans because they put nuclear power, I don't know the exact amount of miles, but the amount of miles that the sun is from Earth power put nuclear power. So it's like, if we're going to figure out space travel, that should be the first thing that we figure out how to do, is to get the nuclear power that far away, because that's how far it should be. But my larger point is that we seem to get very comfortable with seeing things and don't realize how odd or not helpful it may be to us. And things get normalized that are very scary.
Yeah, and very normalized. It's like, well, if I'm not, I might not be here in 50, 60, 70 years, so what do I need to worry about it for?
Yeah.
I think that is a sad mentality to have, but I think a lot of people have it. Like, oh, the planet's gonna die, whatever, I won't be around to see it.
Well, what's also odd is that that also is the look that they don't think it's going to affect them during their lifetime, and all of these things are already affecting everything and us right now during our lifetime.
Come on.
And that seems to be speeding up.
That's just hokey. These storms aren't getting worse. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Are you getting back to that science again?
Yeah, there is that.
Science. Maybe you know Noah.
I can tell people what I do.
Maybe you've seen him. Maybe you've seen him in some of my photos. But tell us, for the people that don't know who you are, who are you? What do you do?
Whew. My opinion on that changes from minute to minute. It's funny, I've actually been doing a lot of thinking lately about like what archetype one is living, or archetypes, and sort of in that my own path and choices of practice and things like that. For the first large portion of my life, my focus was music. And during that, I was very into reading philosophy and transcendental art, and honestly, I think just very intrigued by the idea of transcendence or enlightenment. And I started to follow things that felt like they could be keys or maps down that path. And yoga became one of them. I was not an athletic person whatsoever growing up, and kind of had these two intersections of wanting to become more physically aware and fit, while at the same time kind of feeling this urge to find these transcendental experiences. And yoga felt like the path that aligned with both. And so I found myself on like a mostly vinyasa track for a while, and then became very inspired by this gentleman who was blogging a lot, Ido Portal, who was sort of teaching this idea of leaving whatever your discipline was in order to be able to learn things from other disciplines and then bring them back into your discipline to inform it. So you don't get bogged down.
Very much the hero's journey.
Yes, and that's exactly a lot of this idea of like the Joseph Campbell and Jungian archetypes, and that resonated a lot with me about like kind of going out and then bringing back into the community that I was spending time with information that was coming from all these other communities. So I kind of view my life as best I can as this overarching yoga practice, and I'm sure at times it's less mindful than others, and other times it's more mindful. But I remember this this idea that like Aleister Crowley, who is this magician, Western occultist, an esoteric hidden philosopher, that very much was like one of the first, I think, interpretations of yoga in the West. He used to talk about how you formulate your whole life around figuring out what the will of the universe is, what speck of carbon you're carrying around that is meant to be on a certain path, and to be able to read your own map and follow it. And so that idea really resonated with me, and that's sort of what I try to do with my own practice. And then teaching and owning the studio is kind of teaching people mostly through the breathing and movement practices, since they, I'd say, are my anchors for my own life practice. Like, they're the things that I feel like I can offer. My teacher Naveen has this beautiful line where she basically says, like, you're not really going to be able to teach someone to meditate, but you could teach someone what maps they need to read in order to traverse that terrain. And that's sort of the way that I look at my movement practice, my movement teaching, or my breathing, pranayama teaching.
Awesome. So do you have any workshops, retreats, anything coming up that anyone out there could come.
I co-own a
partake in?
studio yoga movement sanctuary with my dear friend Emil Sorger, and we are running a teacher training every year that starts in January. So that's always a big thing if you're looking to immerse yourself, but come to a class first and see if you vibe with what we do. And it's a wide array of beginner to advanced, complete beginner. I was sick in my early 20s and crippled by illness, and one of my favorite parts of my work is rehabbing people and showing them how powerful that they actually are. And other things, I'm doing a retreat to Iceland with my friend Ari Halpert, who did a 30 Days of Inspiration, which you should go watch.
Go watch it.
All of them. And Ari and I are doing a retreat to Iceland in October. I believe it's the 14th to the 20th. So come see beautiful Iceland and practice and yoga and
Awesome.
Yeah.
So before we leave, do you have a little nugget of advice you would like to give everyone that's watching?
I guess the thing that I've been thinking the most about is sort of that idea of the archetypes and the hero's journey, and when someone moves through these hero's journey, or referred to I think sometimes as like the dark night of the soul, is these moments where you have to go deeply inside you. There's two takeaways that I find both happen simultaneously, which is vibes with my affinity toward like Taoist philosophy, is that you're more powerful than you knew before, and at the same time more insignificant in the grand scheme of all of it. And it's being able to run that razor's edge of knowing that you are part of the immensity of the universe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So where can they find you?
NoahMoves.com links you to all my social media, which is at NoahMoves, and then YMSphilly.com is my studio, and at YMSphilly is same Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
taking
Joe.
the time
It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
sit and chat with me. Thanks, Stella, for joining us and not being loud at all.
Did a beautiful job, so.
I'll link all of Noah's stuff up right down here. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. And that's my neighbor screaming. Peace out.
Human noises.